Hi guys, this is Shannon from Reptile Way. Welcome back to our channel. If you watched our bearded dragon or blue tongue lizard care guide videos, or if you're new, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to be doing a video all about how to set up a bioactive enclosure, whether that's an inside sort of enclosure like a terrarium, vivarium, or an outside enclosure. It can really work for all those three types of enclosures. Now, the meaning of a bioactive enclosure is pretty much it's an enclosure with quite a few living elements that work together almost like a mini ecosystem. Now, the reason why Reptile Way is loving using a bioactive enclosure setup is because it goes above and beyond just the basic husbandry and care of your reptile. It really is mimicking as close to the wild as what you can get for having a captive animal. Now, the reason of why having a bioactive enclosure is really good for your reptile is it really does promote the long-term health of your scaly friend. So it can promote good shedding, also help with their respiratory health, as well as hydration. So really good at keeping their skin hydrated, their scales in nice condition, as well as people have said, and even research has sort of found that it can promote quite a good immune system in your reptile, because obviously with a bioactive enclosure, it can incorporate that good bacteria that is really important for your reptile's immune system. Now, with a bioactive enclosure, it has the ability to handle sort of waste disposal, recycling, control the presence of pathogens, but also it can help increase positive factors like oxygen and humidity. So there's lots of good reasons of why you should set up a bioactive enclosure and how it can actually improve your scaly pet's life. Now we're going to delve into the 5 main building blocks of a bioactive enclosure. So number 1 is your drainage layer. Number 2 is your soil, which is going to be a bioactive soil mix that will be friendly for insects and also for plants and your reptile. Number 3 is the leaf litter. Number 4, you've got your safe plants. And then number 5, you've got your bugs, so the cleanup crew. Building block number 1, the drainage layer. So the drainage layer is pretty much a layer right at the bottom of your enclosure where excess water can pool into, and it's not going to pool into just the bottom of your enclosure where the soil is, and it could potentially drown the roots and do a lot of damage to your plants and kill your plants. So your drainage layer is just a layer that allows excess water to pool into it. And also this stops your little cleanup crew from drowning. But if your springtails do get into that drainage layer, don't stress, these guys generally float on water. So drainage layer is a pretty crucial element. Now there's a variety of things you can use to make your drainage layer. Now a really good thing to start with is to have a look at a whole variety of different methods and see if you've got any of that material at home that you could utilize, recycle in a positive way. Just make sure you clean it before you do use it. So different types of drainage layers you can create. You can use egg crates, where you can have egg crates stacked to make it however depth you would like to make it, and then you put your drainage screen, it's almost like a fly screen material, over the top, and make sure you cut it slightly larger so that the edges you can actually fold up. And this keeps your soil, your reptile, everything from getting into that drainage layer. Now other things you can use clay balls, you can use gravel, pebbles, you can use PVC pipe. So whatever you're using, whatever materials you're using for your drainage layer, don't forget to put that drainage mesh over the top. But say if you've got an outdoor enclosure like we have set up here, we generally drill holes drainage holes into the base of our enclosure, and especially we increase the holes where we're putting plants, and that just allows excess water just to drain out, and it keeps the weight down because our outdoor enclosures are already extremely heavy. And also when it comes to cleaning the enclosures, I actually step inside, so I don't really want to be stepping on rocks and pebbles because that is going to hurt my feet. So if it's a big enclosure that you're going to be stepping into and it's off the ground, I would highly recommend maybe drilling some drainage holes in. Now, a bit of a tip for when you are doing your drainage layer, just make sure whatever you have decided to use is Reptile safe. Make sure you give it a good thorough clean. We use the Earth dishwashing liquid to clean lots of our products and lots of things we're going to use in our bioactive enclosures, and that's because it's grey water safe, it's natural, and then we'll actually put things to dry out in the sun. So UVB does kill a lot of things, so that is really, really good to utilize nature wherever you can. And yeah, but just do your research and make sure whatever is in that drainage layer is not going to harm the reptile or is going to harm the bugs, the bioactive cleanup crew, or your plants if some of those things do make contact with that particular drainage layer. Now, the second building block is the soil mixture. What are you going to use to create your bioactive soil? Now, there's so many good YouTube videos out there, especially from people like the Bio Dude. He is a really, really good source, and they will actually list a whole bunch of ingredients of things you can get in the US to create your particular soil type that's going to work for that reptile, for those plants. And but in Australia, it's a little bit tricky. I find the YouTube content out there is a little bit smaller when it comes to what products are safe for your reptiles, for the cleanup crew, the bugs, and what's going to work best. So this particular soil that we are going to be making is more of a tropical soil, so the humidity will generally be around 40 to 90%. So just keep that in mind. If you've got more of an arid animal, this particular bioactive setup probably won't do for it. Now, I am actually going to put a list of all the different products we use to create this particular mixture, and it is safe for your reptile, for the plants, for the cleanup crew. It's got no chemicals, no added feed, a plant feeder or sort of pest killer, anything like that. Now, I found this particular soil mixture is really good for a variety of reptiles. I've tested it on northern blue-tongued lizards, black-headed pythons, children's pythons. So it can work for quite a few reptiles that are from the northern part of Australia. But again, I'm not saying it's going to work for every single reptile from northern Australia. Really do your research on where they come from, what's their natural habitat, and what are their requirements for correct husbandry and care. Now, the third element is leaf litter. Now, obviously, when you live in the northern part of Australia, this makes it quite easy because lots of the reptiles we keep here at Reptile Way, they are from here, which means we can go out into the bush, collect a bunch of leaves that are native, and we can utilize that in our enclosures. But say if you're not from northern Australia or a particular area where your reptile is naturally found, just make sure the leaves that you incorporate are not poisonous if your reptile was to ingest it, or they're sort of found naturally in that reptile's habitat. So always a safe one that we use quite a lot is eucalyptus leaves. They are absolutely everywhere. I found lots of reptiles are found in sclerophyll forests, which a main component of that type of forest is eucalyptus leaves. But anyway, just make sure that the leaves you collect are going to be safe for the reptiles, for your cleanup crew, and yeah, they're not going to harm things that you've paid a little bit of money for, but also that you care about. So keep that in mind. Now, once you've collected your leaves, you don't just want to put them in the enclosure because they could be carrying all types of nasties. Also in the leaf litter all the time, you're probably going to find ants. You don't want to introduce that into your enclosure. So a good thing is to disinfect that. Now, an easy way that I do, I actually fill up the kitchen sink with warm water with some of that Earth dishwashing liquid in. I rinse it first, let it soak in that, rinse it again, and then I actually boil it for about 15 to 20 minutes. And once it's boiled, I'll drain the water out, and then I'll let it dry in the sun in that UVB light, obviously away from bugs and ants and things from getting into it. So that's a good way to disinfect that leaf matter, and also incorporate a little bit of bark as well that you find within that leaf litter. That always works really good. Your bioactive bugs will feed on it, especially those woodlouse. They absolutely love bark. They'll hide underneath it as well. So bark, twigs, little sticks, that's also okay to just sort of boil, and that should do the trick. Now, the fourth building block is obviously the plants. What plants are you going to incorporate in your enclosure that is safe for your reptile, and that's really going to add value to your reptile's life? Now, firstly, you're probably thinking, oh, how can it actually improve your reptile's life by having plants? This is really good for your reptiles, especially if they're like omnivores or herbivores and the plants are edible and they taste nice to them. It'll actually encourage that foraging behavior, so natural behaviors that they'd be doing out in the wild. Also, it makes great natural hiding spots having that sort of plant coverage. They're going to feel safe and secure. But when you do water your plants, it'll create little water droplets on the plants, which may stick around for a bit of time, which is a great natural drinking station for your reptiles. And even if your reptiles do like a bit of running water, see the droplets moving. So that's why it really is good to incorporate natural plants if you can, and if you don't find you kill them all the time, really, really good option to have natural plants in your enclosure. Now, I am actually going to put a list of particular plants that I have used with this soil mixture, and it's been successful. And so I'll put a list of those up on the screen, but just make sure when you are planting your plants, so say if you've got ferns and you've got more drought resistant grass, I wouldn't plant that grass in amongst the ferns, because the ferns will need a little bit more water than that. So I will actually almost create like a line of fern coverage, and then I might have some grass scattered in certain places, or that grass a little bit away from that fern, just so I'm not going to drown that plant. So that's something to consider, the placement of your plants when it comes to your watering. If certain plants don't require a lot of water and another plant does, maybe don't put them right next to one another, because obviously one will do fine and the other one won't. Now, another thing when you are planting your plants, make sure you do disinfect them or clean them. Now, where I get my plants, I found it's just fine for me to hose off the actual plant itself, but then I hose off all the soil, all the plant feeder off the roots, and then I can plant it. But if you don't really know the quality of where you're getting your plant, or you think it may have been sprayed or have nasty chemicals in it, there is a particular mixture that you can mix up, and this mixture I've actually sort of got off the BioDudes website of how you can properly disinfect your plant roots and the plant itself. But make sure you really do that correctly and you don't make it too strong. You've got to measure it out appropriately not to kill that plant. Also, to keep in mind when it comes to the long-term health of the plants, you really do want to allow them to establish for say a month or two before you do put your reptiles in. However, the plants that I included in that list, especially sort of largest ferns, grass and bamboo, I've actually had no issues planting that day and putting my reptiles in, because for blue tongue lizards, they will burrow right underneath that plant, push it out, and you need to replant it again. So I try to use a bit more resilient plants for that. But the best way to go about it is let it to establish between 2 weeks to 2 months, and your plants will really thank you for that. Now the last building block is obviously the bugs, the cleanup crew. So very, very important. These guys will actually eat leaf litter, eat bark, they'll eat absolutely anything and everything, even the feces of your animal, leftover food that's fallen out of their bowl. They'll eat all of that, break it down and put nutrients back into the soil, which is great for your plants. So you can't really have a bioactive enclosure without the bugs, without the cleanup crew. So ones that are easy to access in Australia is springtails, your woodlouse. You may get a variety, and then I also use I put mealworms in there and the superworms as well, and they will turn into beetles, and they do a great job of cleaning up the enclosure as well. Now I actually put a particular place where I buy mine. I have to buy mine from online, so I'll put the name of that place up on the screen. I'll also put a link in the descriptions for you so you can go purchase from there. I've found I've sort of stuck with them because the bugs arrive within about 3 days, and I ordered it COVID times and around Christmas time, and it still got delivered really quickly. So that's why I highly recommend them. I just find them quite reliable. But yeah, the cleanup crew is pretty important. Now, again, you can do your research, you can incorporate more bugs, but I do find that having the springtails, the woodlouse, and then having, say, some beetles of some sort, they can do the job in most enclosures. Now, lastly, we're going to go over some little final tips and tricks of how to really maintain your bioactive enclosure and, you know, make sure it lasts long term. And yeah, so we'll get into that now for you. Now, a tip that I wish I would have learnt about before I even set up my outdoor enclosures is, especially in the top end of Australia, ants are a big, big problem. And you really do need to control the ant population that is going to be around that bioactive enclosure. So I do have a few ants in my enclosure, which, you know, I've just left. I can sort of control their population a little bit, and they're generally only staying in one particular garden bed. Obviously, if they do explode and they're everywhere, I will have to probably redo the whole enclosure. But to stop you from even going down that path, a really good way, if it's going to be outside and you do have quite a lot of ants there, you might want to set up a few ant traps around those big outdoor bioactive enclosures. So a particular mixture that I use, I like it to be natural and only really mess with the ants. It may mess with a few other bugs, but it doesn't generally affect lizards or mammals, any types of larger animals. So what I use a mixture of borax, honey and sugar, and I'll actually put the ratios on the screen for you. And yeah, that pretty much, the borax, when the ants feed on that, they don't die straight away, and they'll take it back to the queen, and it actually messes with their digestive system and eventually kills them. So I found that's a really good way of controlling their population. Now, there's lots of different methods you can use to put this mixture in. You can have a water bottle, cut a bit of a hole in for the ants to get in there. I use containers, small little containers with lids, and I've drilled some holes in the lids to allow the ants to get into there. But also I put some of that particular liquid out in a barrier around the enclosure, and the ants will all come to it, feed on it, take it back. So I found that method works because they're all there straight away. So just keep that in mind. If you are having it outside and it's bioactive, actual ants that you have in your garden are going to think this is going to be a really nice home for us. So make sure you control their population and create a bit of a barrier from them getting into your enclosure. Now, once ants are in your enclosure, sometimes you could potentially put some of those natural ant baits in your enclosure, but unfortunately it can kill your cleanup crew. The springtails, it will kill them unfortunately. It can really mess with the woodlouse too, so just keep that in mind. You really want to stop the ants from getting into your enclosure in the first place. Thank you so much guys for watching this video. We hope you learned a lot from this, especially for the Aussies out there. Now you can go set up your own bioactive enclosures because the products we have listed you can actually purchase within Australia. So good luck if you're going to try do that. But yeah, feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit the like if you enjoyed the video, hit that bell for notifications of future videos, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.